Punk, episode 7 with Colin and Olga.
Hello.
Welcome, Olga.
Welcome. We are
do
still
the intro.
Yes, the intro. We are two friends. We like punk. We like some adjacent punk genres. We've been listening and photographing and writing about and thinking about bands for many years, and now we decided to start a podcast about 7 episodes ago.
Ta-da!
And here we are.
Here we are.
Oh, and also I wanted to say that we don't really have a format right now. When people have asked me, by people I mean our friends. By people I mean our friends, like 2 of them have asked, when do you post new episodes? And the official stance is right now we're in quarantine. We're all doing our best. So it is whenever we get around to it.
Yeah.
Eventually, we do plan on having a schedule and doing that. But right now, with all the technical issues and all the emotional issues and mental issues all of us are going through, it's a miracle we are posting anything at all.
I think the overall goal is either once a week or once every other week.
Okay.
One way or the other.
Something like that.
The day of the week, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the goal is to have a day of the week, but we're not there yet. We're still figuring it out.
Well, what's going on? Episode 7.
Episode 7. So I think
it's June 2020, by the way. So
yes,
that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. We're in the middle of protests happening all over the country. There's not as much music news because I feel like everything's kind of buried, and it seems like bands are kind of waiting to release stuff. Nobody can tour. Also, everyone is pretty distracted with all the news and all the happenings and things that are going on. I did see that there were some band shirts that you can buy to support Black Lives Matter movement. It was mostly bands I'm not familiar with. I think there was one band that I've seen before, Drug Church. But other than that,
I read that Beartooth raised $18,000 to support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I thought, well, that's pretty amazing that their fans stepped up the plate. That's another thing is like we're just talking about right before we started is, you know, punk rock. It stands for a lot of freedom, and it stands for inclusivity and, you know,
social justice.
I mean, there's all these things that sound so good, and then you go to a show and it's just a bunch of white dudes like myself, and then I think to myself, okay, well, you want to support a change, you want to do something about it, so at least these bands they created new t-shirts and they donated all the money to organizations fighting for the cause. So I mean, they were going out of the way to do something. I thought, okay, that's kind of the question I've been having is, well, what do you do as a white dude to support the movement, you know? And these bands, they're doing something, they're trying something. I don't know how good it's gonna do, but it's a good idea nonetheless. And any idea can turn into a great idea depending on how it plays out.
Sure. And if you tried helping and it wasn't, you know, it didn't work out, it didn't have as much of an impact, that's okay too. At least you tried, at least you were trying to do something positive. That's awesome too. And I feel like, you know, obviously bands like Anti-Flag or Rise Against and bands like that, they've always talked about social issues, injustice, those type of things. It was really interesting. I saw a tweet that was reposted this week. I don't even know if it's real. Maybe it's fake, but somebody was replying to Tom Morello being like, oh, enough with the politics. And it's kind of funny because all of the songs he's on are very political. So yeah.
I mean, okay, so I'm a white dude in a punk band. I write songs, right? I don't usually write songs about stuff I don't know about.
Yeah.
So it's not like I sit around writing songs about racial injustice. I've never even experienced it. I don't even know. It never crosses my mind. So then I would think to myself, oh, it would be silly of me to write something. But then you bring up a good example. Anti-Flag, fuck police brutality. Like, that's an
Yeah,
awesome song.
it is a great song.
And there's tons of bands. They're as white as I am. They have a similar life experience. They're able to do it. And
Yeah.
they still are able to write good songs. We talked about it last week with Strike Anywhere.
Yep.
And you mentioned Rise Against as well. So, I mean, it is possible. I don't know what it takes, but I guess it's time to at least start thinking about it and how these things impact your life and the world as you want it to be versus the way it is. And I mean, if you want things to change, you have to do something to change.
Yeah.
And so that's
There's
doing something.
yeah, and then in terms of education, I did see something. I haven't watched it yet, but I plan to. Emo Night LA posted that they hosted a discussion about racism in the punk and alternative scenes. And so that is available on emonight.tv. I don't know if it's good yet, but I want to check it out. That should be hopefully educational.
Yeah, and I think now education is important because even people that I wouldn't think are racist say things that are racist on accident or just the way they think about something that they think is not racist now I think is racist, like the whole all lives matter thing. I mean, if I have to have more conversation about that, it drives me nuts now.
Yeah.
Because now I'm having these conversations regularly where I never had them before. Because, like I said, it's never been a part of my life. I never really worried about it. I was watching.
That,
Oh, go
that
ahead.
and to give people context, I think, you and I both live in Bay Area. Most of our friends are very liberal or extremely liberal. They're somewhere on that spectrum. So we don't really hear a lot of those things as some people might.
Yeah,
So while it is, and it's not to say that it's not a problem in Bay Area or in our scene or anything, but it's not as prominent. It's so we don't, and people would not be saying those things around us.
even in the
in,
Bay Area,
anyways.
I mean, it's a different kind of problem. I was thinking about this a little bit because, I grew
Mhm.
up, the neighborhood's mostly white people. My friend's Asian, grew up mostly in an Asian neighborhood, got Mexican friends, Mexican neighborhoods. It's like there's still segregation of the population even in the Bay Area. It's just different
Right.
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So it's not like the people don't, you go to work, you see all the different types of people. You go out, you go to activities, you see all types of people. But then you go home and the people that live around you look the same as you.
Yeah.
That happens quite a bit, even in the Bay Area. So
Right.
even as liberal and open-minded as we try to be, the reality is there's still we're nowhere near a colorblind society or
Yes.
that. And that was something that I was watching TV. Kerry Washington was on Jimmy Kimmel, and she was
Mhm.
saying if you grew up in the 90s, the message at the time was if you're trying to be a good person, it would be, race doesn't matter. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to talk about it. Just treat people equally and you live your life and everything's fine. I guess that's kind of how I grew up as well. You're just
Yeah.
like, I don't care what color you are. We're friends. Everything's fine. But she was saying that it's not enough really, and it doesn't change anything. It just makes it easier to not have to have a conversation. I
Yeah.
was like, well, that's true. Now that if I don't care what color you are and I don't have to ask you any questions, or I don't even have to bring it up. I can just assume that, hey, I don't care what color you are, the world is good. But that's not the conclusion that's real.
Right. And to bring it back to, punk scene and various subgenres, it is weird to go to a show if you're the only person who looks like you. It's weird to be that person in the room, and it's weird, and it's not, you're not always sure if you're welcome and things like that. So it's
It is
hard.
weird. I remember
Yeah.
I saw Marky Ramone open for I think they were called El Tree, something like that. It was weird. I was like the only white guy there, and it's never been like that, and it didn't end up mattering. I didn't have any problems, or it's just like you said. You go to a show, and it's strange. So I can't even imagine that being the case for every show I go to in the punk scene. I'm the
Yeah.
only, there's a very small percentage of whatever group, but it seems like if it's not white, it is a small percentage of any other group.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
And
definitely not a good representation.
hopefully the scene will start opening up to other bands. I mean, like we're talking about, we went to Punk Rock Bowling this year virtually, but last year we went for real. There's 100 bands, and there was only one black punk band in the entire show, Radkey, who I liked, and I bought their
They're
album.
really good. Yeah.
But that was it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like the promoters are interested in doing something about this, because it seems like bands are out there if you look hard enough, and we can bring in more people into the scene and make it a better scene for everybody.
Yeah.
Just we gotta do something to get more people in these shows playing music.
Yeah. And if we have shows again,
If we have shows again, good point.
that is the
That's the
question.
next.
So,
Isn't that the next topic though? Also,
yeah, it kind of is. I noticed that Coachella was officially canceled, I think today when we're recording. And so it's been postponed to October of 2021. And it's not a festival I've ever gone to or have interest in going to, but I think it's a good indicator of the fact that festival season is kind of over for over a year.
yeah,
Because it's one of the probably biggest money makers. It's definitely the most known festival. They do 2 weekends now, and it's pretty huge. In fact, I even saw an article about how it impacts the fashion industry because all these brands make an entire lineup of clothes that just for wearing to Coachella. That's how big of an industry deal it is. And so that's pretty unfortunate. And then Lollapalooza is also canceled. I think earlier this week. So we are not looking like there is festivals
absolutely
anymore.
not. And tying into that, you mentioned to me the Save Our Stages website, which is funny that you mentioned it. I had went to it like a
Uh-huh.
week ago, and I signed their petition,
Oh,
sent my senators the letters. But what it is, it's saveourstages.com. It's the National Independent Venue Association, and they're looking for members of the public like you and I to send letters to your politicians to try to get the Restart Act passed. And that's the Senate Bill 3814, the Restart
okay.
Act. And so what this website does is, I should mention it again, saveourstages.com. It connects you to, you just put in your name and address, and then it gives you a form letter to fill out. You can customize the form letter or just send the letter itself, but it will send it to all of the senators in your area. It just sends them a request from a member of the public to check out the Restart Act. And it's basically a loan program for small businesses, including clubs and music venues, a way for them to pay back over the long term with a 7-year loan program with low interest. And I mean, it sounds good. The one thing I didn't understand is who gives the loan to who, but that might be getting into the weeds too much. I think just getting the act going and getting information about it moving around so it can gain some steam would be an important thing to do. So if you're looking to, try to save your local stage, saveourstages.com.
There's basically 2,000 venues that are in all of 50 states. And I think I saw something that about 80% of venues will go out of business if, due to the shutdown. So check it out. Don't just take our word for it. Check it out, get educated, and take action. And then the only festival I noticed is still not canceled, which I've been watching this with kind of from the sidelines, just in amusement, is Aftershock.
Uh-huh.
So Aftershock is a metal festival in Sacramento, California, every year. And they continued selling tickets for it. And it's a really big festival. Like, there's lots of people. And they continued selling tickets after the shelter in place has happened in our state. And then they haven't really announced who's playing it. So then they sold tickets, and the people still don't know what's the whole lineup. There's only been Metallica and My Chemical Romance that have been announced, and the rest of the lineup has not been, and they still haven't canceled it. So I'm always kind of watching it in curiosity, because I'm just wondering if it'll happen. And I don't think that it will, but I
I don't
feel
think it'll
like
happen either, but it's scheduled for October 9th through October 11th. So I think
of
that's why
2020.
they haven't canceled it yet, because
Okay.
there is a slim chance that
Yeah.
by then California could be in stage 4, which would be the full reopening of the state to whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, judging at this pace we're moving through these stages, I don't see it happening. However, it's possible. Anything's
I mean,
possible.
yeah, anything technically is possible. I found it funny that, or interesting that they sold tickets after it was it was a gamble at that point. So I don't know what their plan is for yeah, what were they going to do? Are they just trying to raise money for next year's lineup,
I'm
or
thinking
and just roll over the tickets? They might just be doing that.
I would think, and I don't know, I don't have any information about how things actually work, but I would say bands have guarantees that they would be owed by Aftershock as soon as they sign on the dotted line to pay. So Aftershock
Oh,
has to pay these bands a guaranteed upfront amount to get them to even sign the contract. Then once those bands have been paid with the money that the people that paid tickets for have paid, um, they cancel the event, and they would be looking to file an insurance claim
uh,
to reimburse the fans, and they file for bankruptcy and all that stuff. But they have to deal with that after they pay the bands, the bands that they have to pay up front. That's what I'm imagining. Maybe I should
so
look into it more.
maybe Metallica is a very expensive band to book, I imagine.
I
So
imagine.
I imagine so. I probably could not afford it.
No.
So
And I don't think Aftershock may not have that kind of money up front. So it's like, hey, let's sell some tickets in hopes that we can keep going. If the show
yeah.
goes on and you got Metallica on the bill as the first band playing after the end of a pandemic,
Oh man.
that show will sell out in 2 seconds. Like, that
That's
will
the
be
thing.
the hottest ticket, not just here, but in the entire planet.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
and
true.
and that Aftershock festival would then become the premier festival of all festivals if that happened.
That's
So in the perfect world, I guess that's what we're hoping for.
yeah.
Again, I
I It's
got my
already sold
doubts.
out. I don't have tickets, but I hope, it would be amazing if we can just have shows and have a normal life in October. I'm for it.
You know
I
what's
vote yes.
weird? Like, now that you're saying it, how
Yes.
do you think? All the venues are closed now, and I'm afraid of the virus, obviously. So my original thought was, oh, I got to stay away from clubs even after they open for a little bit, because I don't want to be a part of that second wave, right? But man, I'm
Mhm.
getting so cooped up. I think I'm willing to start risking it. I'm like, man, if stuff opens up, maybe I want to be part of the original crowd that starts going places, even though it sounds crazy. Like, you don't want
Oh,
to die, but on the other hand, I'm like, what are the odds? It's so bad. You're like, I don't know.
no, I'm with you. I think the longer I'm at home and in shelter in place, the more I am willing to take risk. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm not saying break your county's rules right now. Like, I've been really good. I'm following all the rules. I'm not going to illegal parties or illegal shows or anything. But if there was a show that was playing in San Francisco next week, I might go if it was allowed. Because at this point, I'm kind of like, well, I could play it safe, but is this the life I want to live? Like, at this point, you just cook at home, you go for a walk, you watch TV, and then you go to bed. There's really,
you're making a contract with yourself. You're like, I'm gonna stay 6 feet away from everybody, and I possibly can. I'm gonna wear this dumb old mask. I'm not gonna talk to anyone. I'm not gonna touch anyone. I'm not gonna do anything. But I need to get out of here. I need to go do something. That's kind of how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
If
And
it was an option.
Yeah, if it was an option, so I would go. And I guess you and I did go to a show. We saw Refused right before the shutdown started. So we knew that we obviously were aware that this was happening, but we didn't have any sort of, California didn't have shelter in place yet. And we were one of the first states to even have it. So it was pretty early on.
Yeah.
But I just remember we went to a show, and I just remember being kind of uncomfortable thinking about it, just because I've never had to think about what I'm touching. And we were at that phase of the virus where you were just washing your hands constantly, but there was no masks yet.
No masks, that's right.
There's no masks. There's no social distancing. So all you had was just like your obsessive hand washing, and that was it. And so I washed my hands probably 4 times at that show. Each time, anytime I touch something or, use my money or anything like that. And it was a little bit uneasy, but I feel like I was still able to enjoy myself, even though I went into it thinking, I'm going to stay in the back, I'm going to stay away from people. And we didn't get too close, but you're just so used to going to shows that you have your behaviors and where you stand and how you interact
we
with
did
people.
go in the pit eventually, but
we
didn't go in the pit. We were on the outskirts of the pit, and even I wouldn't say I was 6 feet away from the people in front of me, but I was at least 3 feet away from the people in front of me. And that was on purpose. I do remember timing like, oh, I hear there's some disease floating around. I don't know what that's about, but I'll just like lay low.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of where we're on the same. We're like, we're not going to like jump in the pit or get in the front row like we like to do.
Yeah.
And well, it's still
I brought
possible to have fun.
I brought hand sanitizer. We sanitize our hands and washed our hands a bunch of times. But man, it just seems like a completely different life ago. Like, we ran into somebody we know, and we, gave them a hug and stuff like that. And
that's true. That's right.
Whew, that just seems like reckless behavior now. Hugging a friend?
Oh my God, no way. You're right. I'm not hugging anybody.
Yeah.
Nope.
but I feel like kind of the longer the shutdown, the more I'm willing to go to a show before it's completely safe. And I wouldn't go when it's completely unsafe. But I don't know how you measure that perception of safety, but I'm much more willing to take a risk and go when it's kind of, a little bit unknown or a little bit risky. And of course,
we've had 4 months to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, of course, still wear a mask and stay away from people and no hugging your friends. Forget about that. But, I would go to a show for sure if I could.
Yeah. Yep.
It's hard, even like doing this podcast, and we're not like seeing music, and I don't know, music is a big part of my life and how I entertain myself. So it's really hard to.
And there are new releases. Like we started earlier, we were saying not a lot of bands are releasing music because of the situation, but we got stuff.
We got a couple. We got a couple. So the first one is, there is a new album. It's 10 songs from Joyce Manor, and it's a band from California.
Yes.
And this is a bunch of songs that were recorded between 2008 and 2010. So some of them have already been recorded, some of them have not been recorded, and some of them have been on rare releases that the band put out in the early days.
Yes,
And
2008 to 2010.
yeah, and I like this. It's a pretty fast listen. It's like under 15 minutes. It does kind of vary in energy and the type of music. Some songs are a little bit faster and harder, and I like them more. And then some of them are a little bit more folk punk, and not as energetic. So it's kind of a mixed bag because it's, you know, a collection, a compilation.
And even the way that the songs are organized within the 10 tracks, it starts off like hard garage punk, and then it has kind of acoustic folky punk type stuff, and by the end of it, then it has not hi-fi but regular fidelity fast punk that's what I'd be used to hearing on an album by them. But just the way that it's organized, it's not really grouped into any specific way, and I think it's probably for the best, because then I would just hear 2 songs that I liked and I wouldn't even go through the rest of the album. So no, I liked it. I thought it was great. Not every song, but definitely worth checking out. Joyce Manor, check them out. Is good. And it's crazy. It's on Epitaph, which to me was nuts. This is the new world we live in, where the record label doesn't mean the same thing as it used to mean. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and they were on Asian Man before, I believe.
Yeah, I know they were on Asian Man before. But, you know, for a while there was the Epitaph sound, the Fat Records sound. There's all these sounds, and it's just like the label will only do that because that's what the fans want of that thing. And, you know, we're finally to the point where you can't just rely on that one thing. Times have changed. You got to start branching out and picking up new stuff. So the fact that Epitaph is jumping on Joyce Manor for this, that's cool. I thought that's good.
Yeah. And then the other new release that I found this week is a Tidal Wave B-Sides by Taking Back Sunday.
You were saying it was mellow.
Yes, it was mellow and acoustic, and you can skip it. It's I like a lot of you know, Taking Back Sunday is probably one of my big guilty pleasures. However, this was not hitting it home for me.
You know what? I got a bad feeling about this. Oh!
I do not have a great feeling about this one, but I think if you're, you know, a hardcore fan and you want to hear these songs in acoustic versions, check it out. But otherwise, there is no reason. If you're kind of like a mid fan, no, it's fine.
Hardcore fans only.
Hardcore fans only, correct, yes.
And by hardcore fan, we not of hardcore fans, but hardcore Taking Back Sunday fans that would enjoy their mellower output.
Yes.
I didn't listen to that one. That was on you. As is the next one you put on the list.
So the next one I put on the list is NoFX is doing a split album. They are doing 5 NoFX songs because, as we talked about before, apparently Fat Mike is just really productive in quarantine.
We got something about Fat Mike every week.
Every episode.
I'm 7 episodes in a row.
I know. And honestly, I did spend a lot of time trying to find any other new releases to talk about because I am aware of the fact that we do talk about NoFX every episode, or Fat Wreck every episode.
Yep.
But I didn't find anything else that I was into. So then NoFX, it's going to be, they're doing covers of Frank Turner, and the whole album isn't out yet. There's only a couple songs you can check out. And then also I thought was pretty neat is that they are doing 25th anniversary of No Use for Names Leche con Carne, which was released in 95. And so they're re-releasing the vinyl, and they actually have some old No Use shirts that they've reprinted. And so those look cool. It's definitely their old Flames logo. So yeah, they're still doing stuff. And then there's a bunch of songs that I'm kind of waiting for full albums to be released so that we can talk about the albums. But then sometimes I just don't wait and we talk about the song instead.
We'll have to go back and pick our favorite punk albums from 25 years ago or something
Ooh.
like that.
Oh man, 1995.
See, it's funny because 1995 was slightly before I even got into punk.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, it's funny. No Use for a Name. They're one of the most famous South Bay punk bands.
Yes.
They're like from Sunnyvale and San Jose, and that's where I live. Yet I didn't get into them because I just wasn't into that style of punk when I got into punk in the first place. But if you weren't around at that point in time, things were just, it was a wave. It was a wave that came through, an unbelievable wave. And that was one of the albums on that wave. And great album.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked it out, well, now's the time, 25 years.
And then today, uploaded one of their videos onto YouTube to promote the release. And I don't know if it's a new video or not, but it was really funny to see it now because everything is so outdated. You know, you can tell how grainy the cameras were 25 years ago. I watched that video and then YouTube started auto-playing a bunch of stuff for me. And before I knew it, I watched 8 videos of No Use for a Name. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what has quarantine done to me? I think in our first episode, I talk about how I never watch music videos. And I just totally sat there this morning and I watched probably 25 minutes of music videos, which is a lot of punk songs. Just sat there and watched a bunch of videos and it was actually really nice. It was a trip down memory lane.
That's cool. That reminds me, you start watching something, or you start listening to something, and then time flies by, and you're like, "What the heck?" When I was listening to Joyce Manor, that's what happened to me because, like you were talking about, the songs are different.
Yeah.
They're recording at different times, and at one point, I'm like, "Is this the same band? Did I go to the next album on accident?" And then I'm like trying to go back and click on stuff to make sure I'm listening to what I'm supposed to listen. I'm like, "Oh, that's everything's fine." That's just the way it is. So it's good.
Yeah, I think I accidentally listened to it on shuffle at first, and that was making it even more confusing. But then I changed it. But yeah, it's it's a good listen.
Anything else?
Ooh, what is your grudge of the week?
Okay. Microsoft Teams is my grudge. It's not that it's bad because I just started using it at work. It's just there's been a ton of commercials on TV with this British guy, and now I've been quoting him nonstop just because I keep seeing the same commercial, and it became a joke to me. And I sit there with my wife, and I keep talking in a British accent, and she hates it, and it's fun to me. And now the joke's on me because we're using it at work now, and it's super distracting because we all got it at the same time. We're all learning it, and now every 5 seconds all day long was new messages, new messages, new messages, and the notification windows popping up every 5 seconds. And I put, work done since implementation of Teams equals 0. Remaining tasks to do since the implementation of Teams, all of them. So it's just like the scorecard right now is very bad for my productivity. And it's not like anything we're talking about on these Teams chat are good. It's mostly, why are you starting a new chat window? Why are you starting a new thread? And so then my response was to open a new window, start a new thread just to annoy people, and then they would do it back to me. And although that was fun, I'm over it now. So
yeah. Oh, then I'm going to pick a technology related grudge as well this week. It is when people share things with you, maybe a video, maybe an article, maybe a movie, maybe a book, whatever. And then you want to talk to them about it and you realize they haven't actually read it or listened to it or watched it or anything. And so you come back and you have feedback or comments of like, oh, well, that was funny, or did you see this, or this reminds me of this other thing I heard, listened to, read, whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't watched or listened to that yet. And you're like, then why did you share it? I do not understand.
Oh
and,
man.
and it would make sense if it was something they shared because maybe they didn't have time to watch it, but they thought of you. So, for example, when people send me stuff that's about the kind of dog I have, I get it. I'm like, oh yeah, they don't care about this. They just saw it and thought I would find it funny, amusing, whatever. They just shared it. That's fine. But a lot of times it's not. It's something completely random or something that's in current events or something like that. And so you assume that they've actually consumed this content, but they don't know what's there. And then you're wondering, but why did you send me this thing? Like,
I would definitely ask.
yeah.
Why?
Or when people just read the headline and then the rest of the article actually disputes the
Oh
headline,
yeah.
it's kind of not even like it's a soft grudge this week, but I do find it kind of I'm puzzled by it more than
That hasn't happened to me lately, but if it did, I would be feeling that as well.
yeah.
Legitimately. Well, I think that
Oh,
wraps it up. No?
that about wraps it up. We are at almostpunk.com. We are on Instagram at almostpunk, and you should email us at almostpunkpod@gmail.com. Share new music that we haven't found yet, or tell us what you are grudging this week.
Absolutely. Also send us your 25th anniversary album. That would be
right.
1995. That would be the year.
Or you can send us various video links to videos you have not watched.
That's right. Well, I guess we're signing off then, and we'll see you next time. Yeah?
Next time, yes.